I'll now demonstrate the Backup and Recovery Manager interface. Start by opening up a browser and entering the IP address or resolvable host name of the BRM server up here. Enter the credentials. If it's the first time using those credentials, you'll be prompted to enter a new password. First, let's take a look at the overall structure of the interface. Regardless of which individual page you're on, you'll always have a tabbed area where you can switch between the 6 different interfaces: alerts, activities, events, systems, configuration, and reports. You'll also have a listing up here which shows the current user, a settings icon which looks like a gear. You click on that and you can do things like user management, which we'll demonstrate later, online help, and a logout button. There's also a search area which we'll show later. Also, in real time, regardless of the page, you'll have information about the current errors and warnings for all of the combined systems. So even if the errors increase during the time that you're in the interface, this number will tick up. The home page itself consists of 6 hot links, which will bring you to, and it describes the different pages that are in the interface. Plus you have some other real-time dashboard style information, such as over here next to alerts. We can see that there are 37 errors and over 99 warnings for the combined systems. Looking down below, we see the total number of warnings at 517. Next to systems is a count of all of the combined Avamar, data domain, and networker servers. And next to activities, it shows us for the last 24 hours the total amount of backup activities in Avamar replications and whether they succeeded, failed, or are currently running. So this is really just basically a home page. The next place we're going to go is to the alerts page. The alerts page is designed to show you only errors and warnings for all of the combined systems. Here in the system summary area, we have the total number of events in those categories divided up by the type of server: Avamar, data domain, or networker. Down below here are the events themselves, and we'll take a closer look at that in just a moment. And then now let's scroll to the right a bit. And here we see the 5 systems with the most amount of outstanding errors and the most warnings. And if we were to hover over one of these bars, we'd actually get a listing of what that system is named. And if we click on one of those bars, it'll automatically filter this main view area to show us only events from that system. So as you can see, it's now only showing us events from IBI Save 05. And it's showing us the errors and the warnings. Other filters are available over here in the View section. So if I were to click on Avamar, it would show us all the events for the combined Avamar servers alone. Same with networker and data domain. Also, you can choose to show only errors or only warnings. You may notice that some of the events are grouped together. So for example, there's an email notification failure that has been repeated 25 times. So rather than creating a cumbersome series of event after event, they've grouped them all. So if you want to take a look at some of the detail, you can just simply click on the plus sign. And that will give us the ability to view multiple events. Within this interface, there are some activities we can do. We can highlight individual events or groups of events using Shift-click or Control-click. And having done that, we can acknowledge the events, which is an indication that we understand and perhaps we've remedied the event. And in that case, it would drop down the total and the individual count of errors in this case. We can also hide events by clicking on this button. And as you can see, that removed them from the interface without actually removing them from the total count of errors. If we want to view those hidden events, we can simply click on View Hidden. And from within this space, we can select individual or all events, and then choose to unhide them here. Now, if we were to select or click on one of these server names, it would bring us automatically to the detail page of that system within the Systems page of Backup and Recovery Manager. Here we have the ability to view, for Avamar and Data Domain System, we can see the capacity information here. For Avamar Systems, we can see the amount of days until it's full, because Avamar includes predictive technology, plus version information. Also, additional detail is located down here. Plus, we can launch the management console for that particular item by clicking on this button here. We'll take a closer look at the Systems page in just a little bit, but next let's take a look at the Activities page. Activities page provides a summary view of all of the backup activities and the Avamar replication activities on the combined systems. By default, it'll show you all of the backups run since today, but you can drop down from this list and select from the objects shown here. Clicking on any one of these backup activities will provide you a detailed view of that activity. Because the activities are shown by either the group or the client, clicking on the detail will show us all of the activity for that group within the time frame set up here. So here we can see that there were two activities. One is a currently running backup, and one is a successfully completed backup. We can use these objects over here to provide some filtering for the information on this side. As with the Alerts page, we have the ability to do filtering from the Views area to show only Avamar backups, networker, and data domain activity, plus additional information to show only failed backups, currently running, or successfully completed. Anytime you see this button, it gives you the ability to export the information as a CSV file. Let's take a quick look at the Replication tab within this interface. There's not a lot of information here because there have been no Avamar replications since today. But again, you could drop down the list here and select a longer period to view more information. Let's move on to the Events page. The Events page is quite a bit similar to the Alerts page, except instead of showing warnings and errors, it shows the other events, such as information, audit, etc. As with the Alerts page, events are grouped, so audit events that show all of these successfully completed logons, etc. are going to be grouped together. So you can click on the plus sign to get detail. We have the same filtering capabilities to view by individual server type, plus we can show only audit, only clone, or only group. And as with the Alerts page, we have the ability to select individual events, hide them, and then go into View Hidden and unhide them. There's no need to acknowledge non-error and warning events, so that option does not show up here. Now let's take a look at the Systems page. The Systems page, as mentioned before, shows you information about all of the systems being monitored. So we see that Avamar objects are shown here, and they include capacity information, also predictive information about how many days it would be until this would be theoretically full, plus version information over here. The same detail is not provided for networker servers, but if I scroll down a bit, you will see that capacity information is also available for data domain appliances down here, including version info. And if we were to click on any of these objects, it would bring up a detailed view. Here we see a little bit more information about this system. There's a customer information tab where you can fill in basically just text information. Also, when you have a system highlighted, you can click Management Console and then launch the native management application for that device. Let's now click on the Manage Data Domain Systems. It is through this interface that we can add, remove, or change credentials on data domain systems. We don't install any software on the data domain systems. Instead, we click on the Add button here, and we would add the IP address, username, and password in these boxes here. I'm going to go ahead and hit Cancel. And if we select one of the data domain systems, we then have the ability to remove it from the interface, or to change the credentials, or to test the connection. Now let's go to the configuration page. For this version, 1.0, the only configuration options available are to configure Avamar replications. The way you do that is you select one of the Avamars from the source list, choose the system, and you can manually type it in, or you can click on this button and bring up a list of Avamar systems that are available. Enter the replication user and password. You can set different backup retention options over here. You can configure a schedule in this area. And you can select from available clients and move them into selected. Once you're done configuring that, you can click Update. The other option that's available is if you select one of the replication configs here, you can highlight it, disable, enable, start the replication immediately, stop it, or delete it. Next, let's take a look at the report screen. The reports page includes a hot link to DPA. Later we'll show you where to configure that. That needs to be pre-installed and somewhere else in the environment. The reports are in 3 different categories: backup, system reports, and configuration reports. We're going to just take a look at a couple of samples to show you what's out there. First, let's take a look at a system report. Click on System Reports, and we'll start with a System Summary page. When you click on any of these reports, you'll see the Report Options section show up here. A lot of times you'll have a choice between Avamar, Networker, and Data Domain. Sometimes one of these objects will not be available for that type of report. If they are radio buttons, that means that within a single report we can only cover one type of system. So that's the case here. So we have to choose whether we want to run a report just for Avamar, just for Networker, or just for Data Domain. Right now the Avamar button is selected, and by default all of the Avamar servers being monitored are showing up under selected systems. If we wanted to remove any of those, we would just highlight them here and use this button to move them over to the available systems page. We also have a time frame option on this particular report which says show me the system summary just for the last day. So let's go ahead and run this report. This is just the most basic system summary that shows us the name of the system, the version of software, the ID, the amount of unacknowledged alerts, and the amount of backups which have taken place in the last day, plus replications. Now whenever you see a button over here, that indicates that there's a chart available for this report. So you can actually highlight one of these objects and click on Time Chart. This is a kind of confusing chart because there's a strange variety of information out there, but it does show you all of the information that's up there in graphical form. Our next report will give us a better example of this particular charting capability. We'll take a look at a capacity and usage chart. Now, as you can see here, we have the option to select Avamar, data domain, or both of the systems. In this case, we're going to stick with Avamar. And what we want to do is show the capacity information for the last month and then forecast it for the next month. So let's go ahead and configure those settings. Now we have some more interesting information. The capacity, how much has been used of the total capacity, and then the prediction over here. So let's take a look at what we can do with this information. We'll click on the time chart. And now we can see that over the last month the capacity remains steady, but it appears to be climbing. So we can see the predictive capabilities of Avamar graphically in this case. There are other reports available. They're all covered in the user guide. Also, if you click on this button over here, you'll have the ability to export the information from the current report to a CSV file. Now we're going to take a look at the search functionality that's available in Backup and Recovery Manager. We'll go to the search bar and enter a value. Click on Search. And the results are divided up nicely by the page upon which they appear. So there are 147 events, 8 alerts, and 488 activities. I chose the name Jester because it's the name of a backup group which has a lot of activity associated with it. It does not show up under server because none of the server information includes the name Jester. So we can click on any one of these objects and it'll automatically bring us to that section, or we can click on, as we can see here, there are 147 events. If we want to see all of those events, we'll click on View Results. This is just showing us the top 3. And here are all the events that include the word Jester. So really they are associated with the group Jester being backed up. And now you can see under Views, we have the original view options that are available in the Events page, plus the filter that we created by running the search. I'm going to take just a moment to show you the online help functionality. You start by clicking on the question mark up here in the upper right corner. You get a drop-down list that can bring you directly to the index, getting started, or any of these other categories that are here. Plus, you have quick links to the other online support sites for Avamar, Networker, Data Domain, etc. The help page is pretty typical in that on one side of the page you have the contents divided up into categories. Up here in the upper right corner you can see a search function. And here is the pane where all the information is displayed. And the splash page for that includes basically redundant links to the main categories from the contents. Rather than going through this line by line, I think you can imagine what the online help provides. It does open up in a new browser tab or browser window depending upon how you have your browser configured. So to get back to the main interface, you'll just have to close the tab. So let's go ahead and do that. Worth noting is the integrated context-sensitive help, which doesn't show up everywhere in the interface, but sometimes what you'll see is a smaller question mark show up on one of the dialog boxes. And if you were to click on that, it would bring you exactly to that topic. So let's go ahead and try that. And in this case, it was a systems detailed view, so the context help on that just showed us that information directly from online help. Again, it opens up in a separate tab, so you need to close that tab to get back to the interface. Now let's take a look at user administration. We'll click on the settings icon, select user administration, and it'll start by showing us all of the users on the system and the role that they have. There are 3 different roles which we'll expand in a moment. administrator, monitor, and operator. Now let's go through the process of adding a user. Fill in the credentials, assign a role, and provide a first-time password. That user will have to reset the password upon first login, and then click Save. Another option that's available to us is the ability to change settings on an individual role or to change the values of the users themselves. So let's highlight one of the roles. And now we can change what privileges are available. We're not going to change any in this case. The other thing we can do is highlight a user. Select the user and then change the values shown here. Lastly, let's take a look at the GUI Preferences option. Click on the settings icon in the upper right corner and choose Preferences. You have three categories of preferences: database, product launch links, and security. The database deals with the database running on the BRM server, so it will generate warnings and errors when it reaches certain thresholds, and those are configurable here. Also, you can choose how much data to retain. And the default is 1 year, but that value can be changed as well. Now let's go to product links. And here we can configure external links to Data Protection Advisor and the Avamar installer product. Last, let's take a look at security. Under security, we have the ability to configure custom warning messages, and that's the only setting here. All of the security is embedded within the appliance itself. So we can change this value to something else. And now when we log out, we'll see that that value has been set. That concludes the demonstration. Thank you very much.